Hey guys, Daniel James here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Native Instruments' new library, which is Action Strings. Now, Action Strings is like their new take on short string passages, short string articulations. So, like in a symphobia or something where you get like a spiccato or a staccato patch, in this you get something a bit different. We'll go into what that is in a minute. So, what we're going to do is I've written a short little track in the background here. We're going to take a listen to that. And then I'm going to show you how I used action strings in it, and then what I used and why I used them and such. So let's take a quick look at the track, and here we go. So there's the short track. Apologies if you heard any clicks and pops. That's not the libraries. That's my computer struggling under the strain of recording and playing at the same time. So let's dive in and take a look at what Action Strings actually is. So Action Strings is basically, like I mentioned earlier, a new take on the short string articulation library. So instead of using like a spiccato or staccato patch from something like Symphobia, LA scoring strings, cinematic strings, whatever it is, here, what they give you is what are called phrases. So let's go in and actually take a listen to what they are. So phrases essentially are, for those of you who don't know, they're, instead of recording each individual note of a string section, so getting every string player to play just one note and then play the same note again, 10 times or something, so that you can come into the keyboard and then just, keep on playing them. What they do is they record, as you can see here, these little phrases. So you can see like you've got your eighth notes here, you've got your 16th, and then you've got like some little figures here, and then you've got like some different types of articulations and stuff. So they record these passages as phrases. So the difference is, instead of each individual note, you get a group of notes recorded. Now, some people would say this is like kind of not cheating, but it's like it's the wrong way to do it, because you're not writing the notes, because they're already pre-recorded. However, I kind of disagree, and I'll go into why I think that is. So if we take a look at my first string section here, which is action strings, I'll just solo the action strings for now. Now, these phrases are, these ones here are all recorded at single pitch. So these 16ths are like it shows there, are, let me just put this in the right key. So these 16ths are all playing the same note. So if I just play, a note on the keyboard, you see it will just loop through, and those phrases are recorded as one single pitch. So, people would say, oh, that's very limiting and such. But the good thing about it is it because they've recorded single pitch on every key, and so on and so forth, it allows you to still create your own melodic passages, which was one of the first complaints I've seen on the forums about, negatives about this library or so. They were saying that you can't write melodies with it, and me being me, I decided to see if they were right. So I wrote this passage here, and as you can see, this is very unstatic. I wrote it as though it was a spiccato patch, and then what I've done is I've put my 16th articulation. I'll just show you how that works. So before I actually play the patch, I'll show what the key switches do. So as you can see, like next to each individual, so my 8th notes are on C0 key switch, my 16ths are on C sharp 0, then D0 the figures, and then so on and so forth. So when you see these key switches, that's basically changing the rhythm. So these are all just making sure that these are on 16th. And so what I did is I played, I programmed in like a little rhythm, a little pattern, and then I put it on the 16th to see how it worked. And I was quite pleased with the results. It sounds like this. Now you see, that instantly, to me, sounds better, because if you were doing this with a spiccato patch, that passage would have looked like this. Would have looked like that, with all these double notes. And when you start going fast with some spiccato patches, you lose that sense of realism, that sense of a player joining the notes together. Whereas here, because each one of these at the minute is playing 2 notes essentially, you get that kind of feeling of a player playing both notes instead of playing. So it feels like I'll zoom in on this bit. I'm going to ramble quite a bit in this video, so prepare yourself. So instead of him playing like one note here, you hear it's da-da-da. He's playing 2 notes in the space of the one note. So for me, programming the note in, all I have to do is put in, the melodic shape that I want, and it will play back in the rhythm I've decided on. So and this is part of the scripting, so I'll go into this little bit now. As you can see, like when it's playing a phrase, so if I play a note, you'll see this yellow time bar start to go around the circle. And when it reaches the top, that's one loop. So you can hear how long that phrasing is. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, that's not important. But the reason this is quite important is when you come to do melodic phrases, if I wanted to change the note tip up here, if I'm starting on, if you imagine the string players, they're playing these phrases. By the time they get to this accent here, they've already settled into the rhythm, so to speak. You know what I mean? So that first note will always be a little bit heavier because they're starting from scratch, by the time they get into the middle of the phrase, they're comfortable playing the accent. So the first beat will always sound different to the 4th or the 5th. Just human nature. Once you get a rhythm down, you settle into it and you become comfortable. So you're a little bit lighter on it, so to speak. Now, if I was changing each phrase and every time I hit a key it restarted, you would be getting that beat every time. However, they've programmed it so that if you play legato, not legato, but if you play conjoining notes, it will continue on in its cycle. So if I was to go from this note to this note, but do it with legato, watch the yellow circle that goes around it. You see that it kept within the internal sync of the actual library. So when I'm changing the notes, I was changing on the 3rd beat, which means instead of it playing this note every time I move up the note, it's now coming in here. So you're still getting that. It's a very subtle thing, but it's you're getting that subtlety of the 3rd beat where the players have settled in. Now, as you can hear, like if I play like overlapping notes, it's very clear that I'm overlapping the notes. So that's one of the little things, if it sounds a bit wrong, you can just come in and finesse the notes. So like, just have it go just over the, and then for a fact it's conjoining. And every now and again I do actually, where I want the first beat to hit, you know, I'll just trim off, you know, a little bit so that they're not connecting. If you, I mean, this, I don't know how well you'll be able to hear the difference, but listen to this note, how the attack of this note is sharp. But now if I overlap it, it's soft. Again, it's very subtle, but try and listen. It's dun. And then when it's overlapping, it's a soft beat. Again, so that one actually sounded like it was hurt. And it, you know, then it feels like it's more natural. Because it's more natural. So that was like my first disproving of the rule that this is, you know, there's a small group of people, in fact there's quite a large group of people who say that phrases are bad because, you know, once they're recorded you can't change them, you know, and how can you be creative? So as you can see here, I have created a passage that I would have done anyway with spiccato notes, except now it's recorded with phrases, and I think it sounds better because, you, like I mentioned, you're getting that conjoining note. You know, you're getting that that feel of the player actually hitting two notes per melodic note. So every time they're hitting this D sharp, they're playing the D sharp twice, and that isn't two individual D sharp notes. That's a player playing two D sharps. You hear that? Da-da. I hope that makes sense. If not, that would have been a complete ramble. But yeah, so that you're getting the two D sharps in there. So, you know, that's one thing. People saying that it can't do melodies, you know, and it's all set in stone. I beg to differ because I've programmed my own melody here, which isn't in the library, and I think it sounds pretty natural. I mean, it does to my ears. And keep in mind, I've got my reverb on. I'll turn that off in a minute. I just want to go through all the elements of what you can do. So, and the second thing people were saying was that you know, you can't do, you know, creative rhythms or anything. People think that you have to be set in stone. So like, you know, if I want this note, I can only have this. But the good thing is I can interchange these on the fly. So if I just, so for example, I could create a rhythm on the fly like this. Now, as you can hear, that isn't a rhythm that's in one of these bars here. This is one you can create on the fly. So let me show you how I use this in the track. I did actually make a point of doing a split rhythm like this. So for the purpose of demonstration, I kept the actual phrase an exact copy. So you can see here I've got key switches going on, and I've kept this phrase exactly the same here. So I'm not doing any like little parlor tricks. So this is what it sounds like when you change the rhythm. So I'll play just the 16ths, which will start here. And then when it gets into this part, watch for the key changes and see how it affects the rhythm of the actual notes, but naturally. So I've decided, the way to think of this is I've decided the melodic shape of this phrase, and then I'm, instead of programming it in note for note with a spiccato patch, I'm key switching, which is like the same as telling a live player, okay, now play the rhythm a little bit different like this. So this is what it sounds like. As you could hear, it, you know, it kept the timing, it kept the feel. It kept like the natural feeling of the players, but it just shifted the rhythm around. So, you know, again, one of the knocks about this library was that you can't create your own rhythms. You know, like phrases are set in stone, and it's cheating whoever uses them. You know, I still see my personally, like creatively, I can still see that is my line. You know, even though I'm using phrases to get the natural feel of the string line, I think personally, of course you're allowed to disagree with me, but personally I feel that I'm still the composer of this line, because the phrases didn't dictate this line and it didn't dictate my rhythm. I chose how I wanted that to be shaped, And as you can hear, it works in a kind of, like the actual rhythm works in a natural kind of way. It works in a natural way. So like. So yeah, to those saying that it can, you know, you can't do this. This is just like a video of me going, no, I'm right, you're wrong. Of course, if you disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. You know, you're allowed to, you know, think that I'm talking out my ass, which most of the time I am doing. But, you know, so I personally, like, as a, you know, from a creative standpoint, I think it is possible to create your own rhythms. So I mean, if you wanted to see what those key switches look like here, you'll be able to see the yellow circle going around and the key switches. So I'll just play that from here. Yeah, so as you can see, really cool, and maintains the natural I can't think of the way to phrase it, but like the natural way a player would hit two notes after each other. So okay, so we've done these. Let's just take a listen to the low section. So in the library, in fact, this will be a good time to show you the menu. So when you get the when you get the library, I don't want to do it, but if you click left and right here, it will go through some presets which will look like this. These are the presets it goes through, which are, as you can see here. So like I've got, you know, 5 different rhythms here, and each preset bank will change each of these into something different. I'll show you what they are in a minute, but I don't want to, just for the, you know, the sake of not losing what I've got set in stone now, I don't want to change one of the presets. So, you know, it comes with all these different presets. You know, you see, that's one thing Native Instruments need to fix. If you have like a little scroll bar in the window, if I click just to the right of it and scroll, it moves the whole patch. That's so irritating. But, you know, anyway, so it's got 2 different sets. It's got high, ensemble. So these are all just like the violas and violin rhythms. So like these are the ones who will get the most use, the basic ones, because these are the ones that look like these. You know, these are the 16th note single pitch, 8th note single pitch, you know, and so these basic ones, and they've got like different time signatures. So they've got, you know, these basics in 6/8, 3/4, 9/8. I think there's 7/8 somewhere. Yep, 7/8 over here, 5/8. So, you know, your odd times. And then they've got like these different, these ones are, I've used a couple up here, so I'll show them in a minute. But yeah, so you can single pitch ones. These are the ones that get the most use. These are single pitch and mostly basic. So these are the ones where you can create your, like I did up here, create your own melodic phrasing and your own rhythms and such. And then you have the same for lows, which I'll show you now. And they also have melodic patches. These are the ones that are baked, you know. So if you hit a note, it's going to play like a major scale or a minor scale. But we'll get into that in a second. And then you have the combination ones, which are just like kind of like what I've built here, like combinations of, you know, basic and melodic. So let's take a look at the lows. For the lows, I've used quarter notes, well, 4th notes, 8th notes, 16ths, and then I've got the figures, and I've got triplets on my 5th key switch. So we take a listen, and as you can see, I've used a lot of key switches, so the lows will be changing a lot. So let's take a listen. I'll mention this before actually. As you can see, I haven't done much melodic phrasing here, which is one thing I love. Like I just wanted my basses to hold the bass, you know, hold the bass note. That's all I wanted them to do. So instead of having to, I mean, time-wise I'm talking here, think about how much time I saved. Instead of programming each individual note here, you'll see what the rhythm sounds like in a second. All I've had to do is draw in my bass notes. That's all I've had to do, but it still maintains what I wanted it to do. The intention of the note, it was the intention of the line it's playing, creatively, from a creative standpoint, didn't change. It's playing what I would have wanted it to play anyway, except the difference is I didn't have to program each note individually. I just told the player. I mean, imagine this library is telling a live player to play this rhythm, you know. Instead of having to program it in individually, you just say play it like this and then change. So this is what it sounds like with the key switches. And as you can hear, it sounded very natural. It flowed very nicely. and it was, you know, it's just natural sounding. So as it went, and if I wanted to program that in, that would have been like this. I mean, it didn't save me time because I have to show it. So it would have been dun 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 dun. That's what it would have looked like. Oh, actually, no. No, these would have been shorter, wouldn't they? So this, it would have looked more like this. God damn it. Would have looked like that. That's what this line looks like in spiccato patches. I mean, this will sound crap, but this is what it would have sounded like. Except hopefully you've got something with round robin if you're using spiccato patches. But that's essentially what it would have been like. But time-wise, all I had to do for this line was that. You know what I mean? It's such a time saver. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. This whole string part was written in the space of, I mean, you look at it. This whole string part was like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes of writing, and then I based the track around it. That's how quick you can get ideas. Of course, I tweaked it up, you know, when the track changed and evolved. I tweaked little bits here and there, but actually getting the idea down is, you know, it's right there. And as you can see with the key switches, it's changing so often. Instead of having to program it in, I just program the lines and I tell it which rhythms it plays and when. I mean, even when the triplets come in, it sounds natural. And that's one thing I should mention now is the key switches. It's normally best if you do them on the beat. This is one, like, almost not a negative, but this is one thing you'll notice. If you're slightly off beat, you'll hear like a weird kind of change. Okay, maybe not there. Maybe not there. You know, like there, it was a little bit of a roll. It's normally when you're changing to something weird. Okay, that's a bad example because that sounded fine. But sometimes, like if you play off the beat, it sounds weird. Or if you overlap, you know. You get like little, which in a mix doesn't matter. But these are good because you can just quantize them up and then, you know, legato them. And legatoing a note is basically just making sure they overlap. Okay, so that's the shorts. You know, as you can see, that was great. By the way, together they sound fantastic. One thing I noticed is that they're both panned down the middle when you get them. How far? 39. So those lows actually sound like this. So they're right down the middle of the, you know, the panning wise, they're straight down the middle to my ears. So like the lows, I just put them, you know, I had two separate patches. I had one for my low notes and I had one for my high notes. And you just drag it over, you know. So now it's on the, where you would kind of expect it. Except for these ones, the highs, I left them straight down the middle. And that's because I wanted to show that the library can mix with other string libraries. But we'll go into that in a second. So the two together sound great. They sound like this. And as you can hear, that's like a full string set. You know, it's like a ballsy full ballsy. It's a ballsy full string section, which, you know, which is what you want. So in two patches, I've done like a whole action string section, which is what you want. You know, particularly those on deadlines. But I mean, I keep using that almost as a cop out. You know, well, you know, you can use this for tight deadlines. Even if I had a month to score a track, if it was short notes like this, I would probably use a phrase library like this, again, like I mentioned earlier, because the conjoining of the notes is more natural than using a spiccato thing, a spiccato string section. So let's actually go in and look at the library a bit closer. So, all right, let me go on to the next section of the string. So what I did here is, musically in this part of the track, I wanted to show that. So I'd show that you could do the melodic thing. You know, you can do your big old arpeggios and stuff. And then what I wanted to do is show how it works when you do like block chords, you know. You could just, this is quite a good point. So like I was saying with the lows, you can create like melodic. It's like you as the composer, you're deciding the melodic shape. You know, you're deciding what notes and what rhythms you want, as opposed to programming what notes and rhythms you want. It's the same thing, you know. The end result will be the same. I decided as a composer that I want these notes to go here. That's all you're doing. So there's nothing right or wrong with using phrases in this way. Yeah, I mean, if you're using the pre-baked ones, unless you know, I mean, it's a weird one. For me personally, I wouldn't use the melodic ones as much, because I feel like I didn't decide. You know, this is a personal thing. I didn't decide where those notes are going. You know, the shape of it, I didn't decide on. It's just pre-baked. Whereas things like this that are single pitch, I'm deciding that this melody is doing this, and I'm also deciding in what rhythm it's doing that. So that's exactly the same as if it was a spiccato patch. I'm deciding what it does. The difference is how I enter that information into the computer, how I tell the computer to play that back to me. And as you can see here, I've just done these big, almost like block chords, but when you listen to the actual track, you can imagine how many notes I would have had to program in to this section to actually play these notes. So let me just play what this sounds like. Solo it out. Now, that was something I wanted to mention about these. That's another like testament to the natural sound of these. So when you have a staccato patch, basically each, like I mentioned earlier, each note is recorded individually. So it's, you know, they'll go 1, 2, 3, and they all go bomb, bomb, bomb. So the notes aren't conjoined. And as you hear here, this is like when the players are playing fast. They're not so much bouncing on the note as they're like soaring forward and backwards, like really fast across the notes, you know, across the string. So if, you know, you can't see what I'm doing with my hand, but I'll do it anyway. So it's like, instead of hitting like how you would do like a staccato, dum, and bouncing off the string once, they kind of do a soaring motion, which has more of a kind of slurred sound to it. And as you can hear, which key switch is this? This one. There's more of a slur between the notes as opposed to like a 16th, which sounds like this. Oh. I mean, if you had this and then did it like double time, you can hear how that's like stabby. That's kind of the principle of how a staccato would work, because like a staccato is recorded sharp like this, you know, obviously further spread out, but then like when you play them fast one after the other, you get this kind of vibe, which is not what you want. You want more of a slurry sound, which is like, you know, those, again, it's just the subtlety, and it all depends on whether or not that matters to you. Because, I mean, personally in my music, I've never gone for realism. I've gone for the best sound. And I think that kind of slurry sound sounds better than the that sometimes you can get when using spiccato. Of course, you know, not all of them. Some are better than others and such, but I'm just talking about this library in specific. And then when you get to these, this is the... is it Bulgarian? Is that what it's called? The Bulgarian 16th. So this is basically, as you can see on the stave here on the note, these little triangles, for lack of a better term, basically mean accent. So this is the note that's being accented. And as you can see, this one's kind of like in a triplet position. So you can hear it like. So it's da 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 da. And yeah, yes. So it's slightly offbeat, you know, it's just a nice little change. And so what I've done here in the actual track, by the way, if some of you guys don't read music, this is a good way to learn what all these things do, you know what I mean, because this is good reference of like what I mean, like I have like a pretty good understanding of music theory at this point, but I mean, there was points when I wouldn't have known. I mean, I know what. Oh, there goes my phone. Oh, it's ringing over there. We'll just pretend that isn't. So basically, so I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah. So like, there was a time when I wouldn't have known what this rhythm actually sounded like. You know, I could figure it out what it was playing, but you know, to look at it and such, you know, to look at these rhythms, I would not necessarily understand straight away what it sounded like. But it's cool to just be able to. And so if I ever have to go to a piece of paper, it's a nice learning tool, is what I'm trying to get at. So, yeah. So next we've got. Okay, let's go to this section. So what I wanted to show here was, like I mentioned, I wanted to show that you can do melodic phrasing and just listen to it. So if you listen to this counter melody here, just listen to this counter melody. It's the good thing about the library here is because you're setting the the notes you want it to play and the rhythms you want it to play, and you can just focus on how the shaping of the melody goes. You can create I know this isn't like an inner harmony because it's on the it's on the bottom, but you can create like these kind of cool inner harmony type sounds. So if you listen here, now if I put the other notes back in, you'll hear how it's like a melody within the whole string part. And again, if I I hope you could hear that. That's actually doubled with the horn. I'll just show you what it sounds like with the horns in there. It's a cool little layering trick there. So yeah, you can do all these cool inner harmonies. Again, if you were to program this by hand, it would look something like, so it's da 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 da. I'll have to get in close. Right. Again, this is where the time saves go. So it'd be like a. It would look like that, I think. Oh no, so it'd be, you get what it is. You could see how many notes I'm saving writing. So yeah, and then I think at the end I change to my final rhythm, which is like such. Which in the mix sounds like this. And then boom to out. So now that I've shown you like all the string parts I've done, let me just go in and actually show you what you can do. So when you get the patch rack, I'll just show you that you could, like, if you click on the sound button, you can change, like your master EQs and the boost. Boost just makes it louder, and these are like some preset EQs. I wish they'd have put like an EQ setting, like the dials on the front page, so that you can adjust it yourself. But they didn't because, they don't like us. I'm joking. You can turn reverb on and off. Mine's off at the minute because I'm using my own reverb. And you can change if you want it on the stage mic or the fire. I normally pick stage just because I don't know any better. So phrase sync is basically like if you play legato. No matter how badly I play, even if it sounds weird, the notes will always come in time with each other. Free trigger basically means that if I play a note out of time, it will play out of time with the next note. So if you wanted to create some weird out of sync things, the crossfade between the notes, there you go, you get like a little phrase change. You can double time it, you can half time it. And this is using the time stretch pro algorithm. So if you go too slow, you get that kind of weird tunnel vision sound. So you can't really go too slow. I found that it goes down to about 80, fine. Maybe 87. I'd say around 90 is passable. And then when you go fast, it just sounds great. Cool. So 120. So yeah, when you load it up, you get like some set rhythms. And if there's particularly, I mean, like the staccato. Normally, this fifth one is a staccato, so you can hit it and end the phrase. However, it's kind of pointless because if you hit at 127 velocity, see if I can do this. It will play a staccato anyway. So if you hit as hard, the hardest note, it will staccato. So you don't need that fifth one. So normally you can change it. And what you do is you click on it. Oh, my phone's going to ring again. So I'm just going to turn that off. Oh, God. Go away. I'm on the phone. Right. I'm a popular man. Very popular. So, completely forgot where I was. What was I saying? Okay, so yeah, you get the fifth. So you get the notes like this, and if there's one you don't like, so say you didn't want this figure or something, you just click on it, and it will load up a menu of all the complete, all the different articulations you get. So again, you can click. I want high strings. I want it single pitch. I want it in 3/4. Oh, sorry, 4/4. Oh, now my other phone's ringing. I got so many phones, and I'm back. Okay, so sorry about that. That was a phone call. The first ever edit in one of my videos. So, what was I saying? I was saying, so when you click on one of these, what happens is it loads up the menu of the, I think I already said this, but it loads up the menu of all the things you're doing, all the different articulations you've got. So, I want strings, I want single pitch, I want it in 4/4, and these are all the ones you can get. Now, it's quite deceptive in that it looks like you can only get 5. But you can actually get 10 by clicking on this button down here. It just extends your key switches. And one thing that kind of irritates me about this is they could have fit all 10 on one screen if they didn't have this pointless kind of image here. There's no point to this. Like, this whole space is wasted on just having the picture. I mean, it looks lovely and everything, but if they could have lifted this piece of paper all the way up and we could have fit all 10. So I could have seen, perhaps they'll fix that one day. Maybe not. So, as you can see here, I've got some different ones which sound like... and then I've got some other ones which are those. Which I didn't use because, I didn't need them. And then on G, this is the first of one of my melodic ones, which sounds... What am I doing here? Here we go. Now, this is the first taste of the melodic ones. So the melodic ones are kind of... these ones I don't use so much because these are pre-baked. These you can't really change. If you play 2 notes at once, you get this. Which, can create some very ugly sounds. I mean, unless, of course, that's what you want. But, so that's pre-baked. But you do get these ones which can be useful. So... say I've got high string, instead of single pitch, I want melodic. So these are the ones that are baked in. So let's say, for example, I click on Alien Attack. That's something I should mention. When you click on it, that's quite a nice feature. When you click on it in the menu, it previews it for you, so you don't have to load, come back, load, go back. But what I wanted to show you was these ones here that say major, minor. When you click on one of these, so as you can see, like I click the tick and now it's my articulation. Now, these can be useful. So say you're, you're stuck for ideas and you want a starting point. These are quite useful in the fact that if you play the key soft, you get the major version. So let me just clarify that again. It's only the ones that say major minor, and these ones won't work with this. So the major minor ones, you click on these. When you play soft, you get the major version. It'll say what it is up here. And all of these notes will adjust to be the melodic the major version. However, if I play hard, you get the minor variation. And that's cool if you want to do like some... this is kind of hard to play. You'd have to program this in, but... So you can create like some melodic phrases there, but you know, not quite as good as you might want. The good thing is you can also join those in with these. So as you can see, on the fly, you can, you know, switch in to have like a little melodic phrase on the end, which can sound more natural. But again, you're stuck with the presets that they've recorded for you. I mean, there are some cool little ones that can come in handy, like these little effects ones, like Alien Attack. So, like, you know, if you wanted to throw that into the mix. So, you know, these ones are kind of cool and useful, but they are pre-baked. that was my bad playing. So, you know, you can throw these little phrases in. It'd be cool if they'd have recorded a lot more of these just the little snippets that you can throw into a melody that you can't otherwise do with libraries. Although the problem with these is if you're doing something like this, which is where you're playing more than one note at once, and then key switch to the phrase, it doesn't adapt to be like more in key. So that's a little bit of a negative, but you know, hopefully like one day they'll release expansion packs or something for this, where you get what I would actually buy is if they had more little basic phrases, you know, like maybe, I mean, like, let me show, like the triplets, for example, a good example, you know, just some weirder kind of basic. What I would personally like is more, like where you get the triplets and such. I would like more, like little phrases and little movements that you can't do otherwise. And what also would be cool, if they're listening, I would really like a legato option, so that it will only play one note at once, but the joining of notes will sound more seamless. I'm not sure how you would do that programming wise. You know, you need one of those contact geniuses to come in and fix that up. So let me just, so now so that's basically everything you need to know about the actual library and what it does. I mean, I could go through every patch, but I think there's already videos that have done this, where, you know, where they've just gone through every. But one thing, so yeah, that's the basics of the library. So what I'll do now is show how I use it, like in context. So, you know, like, firstly, I wanted to show how it layered with other string sounds. So I've put in like some Symphobia chords underneath. I should probably put them in. Now, to me, when I put them in the same reverb, they sound like they're in the same space. I should probably show you what it's like without reverb. Without reverb, it's quite dry. It's like this. If I put it, the lows as well. It does have built-in reverb, so let me turn that on, because that's unfair. Unfair to do it without. Oh, that one is on. So if you want that really dry attacking sound, you know, like the best example I can think of, which most of you won't know, is like the Gears of War soundtrack, the first one, like that kind of dry, aggressive spiccato sound. But then I always put it in really filthy reverb, which I know most of you hate, but you know, it's my personal taste. Just like melts everything together. When I turn it on, you can hear how over the top my reverb is. And also I wanted to show what it sounded like with some legato strings going over the top. This is technically, like in orchestrational terms, this is wrong, the amount of strings I've got playing at once here, but in the track it worked. So this is what it sounds like playing with some legato strings over the top. You know, so that fits in quite well. And then I wanted to, you know, throw it in the context. So string and brass together sounds like this. As you can hear, it's got enough presence to poke out of the top, you know, in that really aggressive sound. I mean, even particularly this section where it was supposed to take a front seat, you know, you can hear how piercing it can be, you know. And the way I describe this is it's lots of tension and excitement, you know, like if you've got this big action scene going on and you need, you know, to just amp up the tension, you know, you can hit the high strings on these and they pierce just right. I'll throw in the percussion so you can hear it. You can hear how like ballsy is the best I can describe it. How, you know, how well that kind of kicks in at the top end. And then one other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to show. So I picked out a little synth harp that's in alpha, actually. You know, just to blow my own trumpet for a second. So we've got this synth patch in alpha which sounds like this. And this is actually a good example of what the line would have looked like had I have programmed it by hand. You see, the reason I programmed it on the synth is because it doesn't matter if the two notes sound individual. Like I was saying on a string where I wanted each note to sound like it was being played twice, but like without it being da 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 da. I wanted it to be la da 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 da, as though played by a string player. On a synth, it doesn't matter because synths, that's what synths are. They play each note individually. There's no slurring in between notes because that would sound weird. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to double the strings with this to make it sound more electro, you know. I think I called the track Cybernetic Haze or something. So to give it that kind of electro-y kind of vibe. And if I layer it in with the strings. Play it with my big old synth section all together. All the synths and strings together sounds pretty awesome. And the reason I'm showing you these in like stems together is to show you how well the strings work against other sections and how present they are in a mix. So as you can hear, it's very present in a mix. And I mean, again, just for the sake of like fairness, I am using the I get asked this a lot. I'm using Art's acoustic reverb. I'll take that off so you can hear what the mix sounds like without it. I'll show you the strings and brass without reverb. So yeah, that is pretty much all of Action Strings. It's pretty so you know, that's one of the things about it. There's not a lot to it, but there's a lot you can do with it. Oh, I forgot to mention that the expression, by the way, is on the mod wheel. Something very basic there. I'll just show you what that sounds like. You can look up here and see as I'm moving the mod wheel up. Quite good for doing those soft notes. So yeah, you know, there's not a lot. You know, it only does one thing. This library. That's one thing to keep in mind. It's one patch, as you can see here. It loads up in it's Kontakt powered, so you don't need Kontakt 5 to run it. You just need the Kontakt 5 player, which is free. So you can just buy the library and it'll work. Like there's libraries like, you know, Synphobia, Cinematic Strings that do a lot of things and they do them all, you know, really well. But then Action Strings does one thing and it does it very well. You know, it does phrased short notes. That's all it does. There's no longs. There's no you know, effects apart from the ones that are programmed in. It's just short notes. So when considering whether or not to buy it, it's do you do enough do you do enough music that has short notes in it? If you don't use short notes much, you're not going to find much use for it. If you use short notes all the time, like I do, because I write a lot of tracks like this, very trailerish and stuff, for me personally, it saves me a lot of time, and it also adds that little hint of realism. Again, like I say, by having, you know, two notes in the space of one, so I can, as a composer, I can focus more on the melodic shape of what I want the track as a whole to do instead of each individual, you know, note. Like, for example, this melodic phrase does this. It's the difference between me having to focus on it looking like that, you know, or, you know, looking like, or looking like this, you know, which is a lot more notes to move around. And so it just depends on what you need. If you use short notes, you know, like this a lot, and you want that hint of realism, you'll make your money back on it, you know, in a very short amount of time. You know, like the amount of, I mean, I've had this for about 2 weeks, you know, in preparation for this video, and I've already used it in a lot of tracks. You know, like I'm working on, at the minute, I'm working on a few games, a couple of films, some trailer things, and I've used it in all of them. I've found use for it personally, and it all comes down to the fact that it's single pitch. That is very important. The fact that they've done it single pitch over many notes means that you, as a composer, can pick which notes you're playing, which rhythms you're playing. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's what a composer does. We're not the musicians. We're not playing the notes. So, you know, it just comes down to you personally. You can program each note individually, but then you know you have to ask yourself the question: if I'm just playing, like, if I'm just programming in straight sixteenths, would it be better to do that with a spiccato patch or just hold down? That isn't sixteenths. You see, that's already recorded live, and you see this is the weird thing, because I know there's a few pros that do this, and I was personally going to do it, is record the phrases that I use all the time, because when I'm writing, there's certain phrases that are quite you know, they're like glue phrases, like straight sixteenths, for example. If you get those recorded real, you know, it adds that hint of realism. So these have kind of done it for me, you know, just by recording those sixteenths and recording these basic patches. These are the things you write all the time whenever you do short notes. You're writing these things all the time anyway. So, you know, do you want to do it by hand, each individual note, or is it worth saving the time and just saving the time and maybe increasing the output of the sound by having it recorded live? Because that's essentially what this is. This is an orchestra sitting down playing my straight sixteenths live, you know. The only issue is you have to check consistency. And the ones I've tried, it works fine with the spiccatos in Cinematic Strings, Symphobia, in Albion, in LA Scoring Strings. You know, I've got them all, I've tried them. And, you know, it's easy to go between, say there's something you couldn't do with this, for example. You wanted some really weird line, you know, that's that you can't do with this. But the sound of this library, so long as you've got a relatively good reverb, is quite consistent with the others. So in a mix, you don't notice. So, I mean, for me personally, and this is, again, these videos are all about how I use these things. They're not like how everybody should use them or me telling you how, you know, the way to do it. Me personally, I use this all the time. So for me, the price of this would be worth it. Again, if you don't do lots of shorts, probably not. If you do some shorts, you just have to ask yourself whether or not you want to save yourself the time programming them in manually. But what I will say, and this is you know, my opinion on it, is it's flexible enough for you to be creative as a composer without the software doing the work for you. So somebody who, you know, somebody who's just starting out might not sound as good as a professional with this, perhaps, because a professional would know the melodic phrasing and the rhythms that would work in certain situations, which is normally not just straight sixteenths, like I was saying. So it's definitely a library that you need to learn to play, and you need to learn to manipulate it. The same with any any new library. You know, you need to figure it out and how it works in your setup. But in my personal template, I don't have a template per se, but in my personal workflow, it comes in very handy for just those short things. It saves me a hell of a lot of time programming manually, and personally, I really love this library. So, you know, feel free to leave in the comments what you think about it. I apologize again for my phone going off every 5 minutes. What can I say? I'm a popular guy, although it hasn't gone off for a while. Yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. You know, do you personally see yourself needing something like this? Did you like the sound of it? Do you dislike it? Do you like the track? And if you're just a YouTube troll, you know, have some fun. I don't mind. I'll reply. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. I will. I do try to respond to them all. I get emailed whenever you leave a question. So I'll try to respond to any, you know, legitimate questions you have. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.